As breakers, we push all the time. Yet 99% of people do push-ups wrong. Getting this wrong will overload your joints, leading to injury. And you'll waste your time if you're looking to improve your breaking strength. A short video won't do it justice and will lead you to potentially hurting yourself. This video will help you avoid pain and maximize your pushing strength. Hey, I'm Coach Tom, and welcome to Breaking S&C. The push-up. So here's what we're going to run through. First is going to be the mistakes I see. Then I'm going to show you how to do the push-up with my method, justify it, and show you how to make it easier or harder to make the exercise right for you. Okay, so firstly, the mistakes. Resting through the shoulder joint. This is the most common reason for pain and injury. Joints can take a bit of abuse, but shouldn't be taking excessive weight. Resting through the shoulder joint will make the exercise easier, but almost guarantee a shoulder injury in the future. And if you're already in pain, resting through the joint will aggravate it more. This mistake can come in the form of sagging through your joint or through winging out your arms, or going past your point of flexibility either at the top or at the bottom. Using the neck. When the neck comes on, it's an extra muscle that makes the movement easier. But it raises the shoulder and can lead to bones pinching on the joint, causing pain and injury. Not having the finger flexors on and pushing through the wrists like a stump. As breakers, we need really powerful finger flexors. If we don't, we run the risk of resting the weight through the small wrist joint, again leading to pain and injury. Not using the hips and relying on the back. If you don't use your hips, something else will stabilize, and it will not be your core. It will probably be your superficial muscles in the trunk or back, which can aggravate the spine or even shoulders. Your hips help keep the shoulder down in the socket, thus helping to avoid injury. Being arched in your back is a weak position to be in. Ask yourself, in power moves, do you ever get into this position? Moving the chest down to the floor. Again, this means you are sinking into the joints. Choosing a too difficult progression. 99% of people do this. They are relying on their joints. I was definitely one of these guys. If the exercise is too hard for you, your body will have to rely on your joints and use the wrong muscles. Many are just not aware that they're compensating to begin with. When you get the technique right and do not cheat, you will be surprised how hard the push-ups actually are, and how much you need to make them easier. Areas to focus on. We want to focus on the shoulders, the neck, the hip unit, and the finger flexors. These will be the things that want to give way. Shoulder. This is the longest but most important section. To stop resting through the shoulder joint and damaging it, we want a scapular push and a shrug down, and keep it there for the whole push-up. Remember, the scapular push is only as far as your internal rotator cuff will take you. I can go further, but then I'm using other muscles to get me there. Once the scapular push is in place, then we lower. In the push-up, we should be feeling it through the internal rotator cuff muscle, not in the chest, front of the shoulders, or anywhere else. Weird concept, I know. It definitely works the chest, shoulders, arms, but we shouldn't feel those areas. From experience, if you move your arm, your bigger muscles like the chest and deltoid will work regardless. You do not need to tell them to work. But the rotator cuff will turn off at every opportunity, unless we put our conscious attention there. When you feel the push-up in the front of the shoulder and chest, this is a sign your stabilizing muscles are not stabilizing the joints. Instead, you're relying on your joint and wrong muscles. This can happen from your first rep or onwards. If you do feel anywhere but here, it's likely you are either not bracing pelvic floor hard enough, you're getting tired in the set, you are outside your true flexibility range and so the pelvic floor lock can't turn on properly, or you have chosen a progression that's too difficult and you have to compensate. Make the exercise easier to feel the right engagement and to get it pain-free. You will slip up occasionally, but keep practicing. You also need to remember that the pelvic floor needs to work as hard as it needs to work in order to stay engaged. So as you go down into the rep, you brace harder, 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 hardest, hardest, and then it eases off. Now, a very important point on pelvic floor as you get tired. The brain's job is to keep you alive. It will find a way to move, because evolutionary-wise, if you couldn't move, you would die. So when you are feeling it in the shoulder and elsewhere, those muscles are doing the work that the rotator cuff should be doing. If you're bracing pelvic floor and you feel the exercise in the right area, great. However, as you start to become tired, the tension will start to move away from the right areas to the wrong ones, and your technique will want to slip. You may not feel tired, but when this happens, it's a sign that area is fatiguing. The body will always try and find a way to move. So if you do feel the tension moving into the wrong muscles, you have two choices. Either one, brace pelvic floor harder to bring the tension back into the right areas again and grind 1 or 2 more reps out with good technique. Or two, if that doesn't work, rest. You are done. This pelvic floor and internal rotator cuff engagement will pretty much get rid of most issues in the push-up, but let me cover the other issues as well. Hips. To round the hips, we want to do it through pelvic floor. Engaging it enough should round your hips, turn on the glutes, and bring the tension into the right muscles. We also need to push through pelvic floor like it's the anchor of the body. This is what we should be doing when you're doing any dynamic movement, sprinting, jumping, and obviously in power moves. It creates the stability that will prevent compensation and pain. Another drill I sometimes teach is a pelvic floor slacken and contract drill, but in the bottom of a push-up, so you can see what the pelvic floor does when it's on and off. Do it next to a mirror and you should be able to see the difference. Once you get that, another technique that works is my pause and pulse technique. Go down, pause, and pelvic floor. Once you feel the tension in the right area, pulse and only move up and down as much as that tension stays in the right areas. If you go up and you feel, the tension's going to go elsewhere, then that's your cue to come down. And if you go down and you say, the tension's going to go elsewhere, then that's your cue to come up. The range will improve quickly over the coming sessions until you're doing full range. Feeling the engagement in the right muscles is way more important than it looking like the best push-up. Neck. The neck muscles are the opposite muscles to the ones that keep the shoulder in the socket, which is why shrugging the shoulder down will help keep that neck off. As you get tired, your body will want to use your neck to help out, so fight it. The shrug down is a small movement, but handily we should be feeling it in the same internal rotator cuff place that we spoke about earlier. Wrists. To stop pushing through the wrists like a stump, space out those fingers and drive those fingers into the floor. This will ensure the finger flexors are protecting the wrist. Also ensure the internal rotator cuff muscle is where we start that tension. In the wrist rehab video, I will go into the theory more, but your shoulder and wrist activation are vitally linked. Rotator cuff off, wrist and elbow vulnerable. Wrists off, shoulder is vulnerable. Movement issues. In terms of moving down to the floor, move like an arch. This will help you not sink into the joints. It will feel like a massive arch, but actually will look pretty similar to just going down. The other way of thinking about it is to pivot on the knees and keep everything from head to hips as one unit, especially the hips. Do not let that unit break, only the elbows bend. Ankles should be up in the air on the knee push-up, as I found people get it quicker this way. Locking out elbows will mean you're in a compensated range of motion, and the stabilizers will turn off. So only go as far as your internal rotator cuff will take you. Or go to straight arms, not locked out elbows. The issue of winging out to the elbows should be fixed through pelvic floor and the internal rotator cuff. But if it doesn't, just ensure your arms are more by your sides, but not brushing. For hand placement, I would have those hands facing forward or slightly turned out to 45 degrees. Otherwise, we start cutting out the finger flexors, and we need those finger flexors strong as well. A brief note on tempo. You'll probably have to move slow at the beginning to feel those right muscles working. To be honest, I would just try and control the movement. But if you want numbers, I would say down for 2 seconds, 0 pause, and 1 second on the way up. That should be fine for now, unless I've set out some instructions in a different program. So all of these principles mentioned apply to full push-ups as well. Engagement is the same, though it may be more difficult to think about the hip unit sagging. Keep it rounded. If you need to, keep your hips a bit higher than parallel. Many of you will not actually have the flexibility to be neutral, and this will make it impossible to engage the right muscles, as it's a compensated range. Again, engagement and activation are way more important than it looking aesthetically pleasing. We need the right muscles activated to keep it safe. If you're injured or have a recovering injury, you work to the capacity of your weaker side or injured area. If your left arm has an injury, it will give up before the other side. In my rehab series, I discuss the energy meter concept. Stop when that weaker side cannot maintain good form, or your injured area starts to feel more vulnerable or painful. The harder you brace pelvic floor, the more you'll bring tension away from pain and to the right muscles. This will allow you to get more pain-free work in, especially as you get tired, and progress you faster. To improve, watch yourself in a mirror or film yourself. These instructions will ensure you do not compensate and go into pain. It will be a weird sensation, as the rest of your body will not feel tired, but that injured area will exhaust before everything else. At that point, you need to rest. Don't rest through your joints in your dance. The reason this method of push-ups is so important is that we want to take this not resting through the shoulder joints and apply it to breaking. How you load the arm in this push-up is how we should be loading the arm in every push you do. You're still pushing in a flare. You're still pushing in a handstand. If you're not applying these principles into your dancing, then you're probably resting through your joints in that as well. Your brain is indiscriminate. It can't tell between the forces you put on your body. Is it a heavy rucksack? Is it a push-up? Is it a handstand? It only knows force and its amount. Rest through your joints at any activity with force, and your brain and body will not care whether you class it as an exercise or not. I know this is not a nice lesson to learn. This is why I implore you to learn how to push properly and to understand how you should push in general. I know many of you will ignore this, but for those that are injured, hopefully this lesson sticks for you. I know I had to be burned a few times before it stuck. So, regressions and progressions. Here are the ways to build this move. You'll be surprised once you do it correctly how much you need to make the push-up easier. Some of these will use different machines, but all have the same principles applied to it. Not resting through the joints. So the best method is with the pulley using the strap. Then you can easily just take as much weight off as you need to. It's very incremental and measurable. To start with, the maximum I would take off is no more than 1/3 of your body weight. Otherwise, it can be a bit disorientating. But if you want or need to take more off to get the movement pain-free, then this may be something you need to do. Then you can just lower the weight until you are off the pulley and onto knees, body weight. You can then bring it back again when you go into full push-ups until you are off the pulley again. Resistance bands. Like the pulley, these take weight off. Use a heavier band to make it easier, or even double up. You can then use lighter and lighter bands until you are onto body weight knee push-ups. Then you can go back onto the bands for full push-ups. Raising the hands makes the technique a bit more fiddly, but does make it easier. You can start quite high, like on a wall, and work your way down to the floor. One last method that's worked fairly well is partial reps. If you're new to resistance training, you'll see improvement in any resistance training you do. So if you don't have any equipment, you can go down only as far as you keep the form and hit the desired reps. Getting more depth will then increase the difficulty. Though what I would say is this will probably stop working as a viable option once you get to full push-ups. Full down, knees up. Once you can do knee push-ups with no equipment, to increase the difficulty, go down in a full push-up, put your knees on the floor, then push up on your knees. Loading the push-up. Once you're at full push-ups, it's then about loading you up even more. So this is when I'd put a weight belt or strap around the chest or upper back, and raise your hands a little so the weight can dangle down. Another way to make it harder is to raise your feet on a box. But be wary, past around 100 degrees, it will start turning into more of a piked push-up. If you've come to this video through a rehab or strength program video, follow the sets and reps I outline there. Otherwise, do a variation that allows you to hit 5 to 10 reps for 3 to 5 sets. Once you can hit 10, make it harder, and then go down to 5 reps. And for your total workout, no more than 4 big exercises. Push-up is a big exercise. Anyways, that was the video. If you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to put out more videos to help build you as an athlete. Also, please give your feedback below. Ask any questions. Let me know what wasn't clear for you, as I'm aware this is all new information and it will help make my message even better. And lastly, let me know what exercise you would like me to cover next in the comments below. Otherwise, till next time, train hard and stay safe.